Now, what Jesus says here in verse 9, this is where we got to turn our brains on a little bit. What Jesus says here in verse 9, Paul later expands in 1 Corinthians 7. In 1 Corinthians 7, Paul adds that abandonment by an unbelieving spouse is grounds for divorce and remarriage. And by the way, we got a whole other segment of the culture who wants to pit Paul and Jesus against one another. When that happens, again, turn off the TikTok, okay? What Paul says, God says. Paul was authorized by God to speak on his behalf as an apostle, to form and to develop the church. And so Paul later, but he admits, and this is confusing, where we got to turn our brains on. He says, remember in 1 Corinthians 7, he says, now as a concession, I, not the Lord, will allow this. That is not a way for us to say, well, Paul was just kind of this rogue apostle.